There's a lot of fragrance lovers out there that base their opinion of a fragrance on how much other people like it. You've heard this before. That fragrance is dope. It gets me a compliment every time I wear it. I've discussed this before, but albeit a benign statement, what that really means is I love this fragrance because other people love it when I wear it. The question is, if you've never received a compliment on that fragrance, or worse, if you've received negative feedback on that fragrance, would you still wear it? I can say with certainty that some of you wouldn't. What this means is that you're letting the performance of a fragrance, performance meaning how well it does with other people, not about lasting power or anything. You let the performance of a fragrance define your identity. Be confident with what you love. And that's the most important thing. You got to make sure you love it. I simply don't wear fragrances solely for the approval of other people. That pursuit is unfulfilling for me at this point in my life and in my fragrance journey. I have to categorically love something to wear it. If others like it too, that's amazing. Now let me be clear. The fragrances I'm going to talk about, there's 7 of them here. 7 very well-known, popular, mainstream fragrances. I'm not saying I don't like them. Again, if you reread the title, I'm saying I don't like to wear them. While they are pleasant, some of them very much so, that's where it ends for me. I find them kind of boring after a few hours of wear. I want to enjoy it from top to bottom, from the start of the day to the end of the day. In order to not present myself as a complete and total snob, I'm going to offer an alternative to each one of these very popular fragrances, and each alternative will be also a mainstream fragrance. I'm not going to just be substituting for niche fragrances, which I've done in a similar series months and months back. And as I have said in the past, the alternatives I'm going to present are not necessarily ones that you need to go out and buy. All I'm saying is it doesn't take a lot of effort to get away from the stuff that everyone is talking about, unless you love it. If you absolutely love one of these very popular fragrances I'm going to speak about, then by all means wear it. That's what matters the most. I don't care what you love, as long as you love it first, no matter what anyone else thinks. That's all we're talking about. Let's dive right into it. First fragrance up here, coming from the house of Coach. This is called Coach Platinum. This is a flanker to the very popular Coach for Men, which might actually be more popular than this, but I don't have Coach for Men. I never bought it. It never moved me. It was very redundant to me. And I had already smelled and had so many others like it. But this one stood out a little bit. This is what I would call fresh, spicy, and sweet. There is something very clean about it, but there's also something a little bit playful about it. It has like black pepper and vanilla and pineapple. And it smells really good. But after a couple hours, I don't care for it. I just like it. I don't love it. What I would rather wear is another fragrance that's also kind of fresh, spicy, and sweet. But this one comes from Yves Saint Laurent, who these days their flankers are not very inspired, but this one was one of the last inspiring flankers that they put out. This is Lomo Team. And this is based on the original L'Homme, which is one of my favorites in the designer realm. But this takes that DNA and it makes it spicier and woodier. Has a little bit of apple in there, has some ginger in there, and a lot of cedar wood. On top of the L'Homme DNA, that very kind of smooth, tonka bean, sweet, creamy, woody profile that is just very likable and soft and kind of understated, but no one could dislike it. This takes it and gives it more depth, makes it more interesting. All of my alternatives are meant to be worn in the same kind of scenario or situation as the fragrance that they're replacing. So I would wear this in the same places I would wear Coach Platinum, except this comes together a little bit more refined, a little bit more mature, but not mature smelling, so to speak. Anyway, that's what I would wear instead of Coach Platinum. I find this way more interesting. That's L'Homme Ultime. Next fragrance up. Again, this is one that I have really enjoyed in the past, and I've worn it quite a bit in the past, but these days I don't really reach for it because it just doesn't move me. And this is coming from Azzaro. This is Wanted by Night. Now, I have admitted that this is a solid flanker. Even though I don't care for it, I did a video talking about designer flankers. You can check that out here. And I had to admit This is a solid example of what a flanker should be. Takes the original and it gives it a different personality that is tied to the original, but has more focus and more specificity. This added that cinnamon, that tobacco. It's warmer, it's spicier. It's still quite sweet and playful, but it just had a very focused, darker personality, which I can completely appreciate, but I don't find it that interesting. A fragrance that I would wear instead that's also sweet and warm and spicy is from Guerlain, and this is their L'Homme Ultime. I've talked about this way too much, but it is easily overshadowed by so many other fragrances. Unfortunately, I think it is wonderful. This is, again, also sweet, still has a little bit of that fruity vibe, almost like cherry, like a syrupy cherry, but it is made a lot darker with chili pepper, so quite spicy and warm, and also has some smoke elements to it that makes it a little bit more mysterious, but it's still pretty playful. I would still wear it in the same situations as Wanted by Night. I just find it more interesting and a little bit more unique. So that is L'Homme Ultime from Guerlain. Let's talk about this bad boy. This thing is a powerhouse. This is a very popular fragrance, and it has been for about a decade at this point. This is Jean Paul Gaultier Ultra Male. Fruity, sweet, very playful, very youthful. That's the vibe here. Pear, this bubblegum-like sweetness, vanilla, some spicy warm cinnamon, and maybe some other things floating around. Makes for a very effective fragrance if you love it. Please love it. If you don't love it, why are you wearing it?
Just so little Becky can say you smell good?
Okay, that's fine, but that's fleeting. That kind of fun doesn't last. How about something that actually affects your soul and makes an impression on you that you want to keep coming back to, and it actually has meaning to you more so than do other people like it? A fragrance that I prefer to this that has a similar vibe, again, quite sweet, has a playful nature to it, but a little bit more grown up. This is from Scotch Porter. They call this Miami Duppy. I've talked about this one several times. This is warm, ambery, kind of almost burnt tonka bean, a little bit of this spicy saffron in there that gives it some nice texture, so it has a little bit more edge than something like Ultra Male, but still quite playful. Easily something to wear on a night out when you want to have a kind of a sexy, flirty vibe, but honestly, in my opinion, more alluring because it's less boyish, it's less boisterous, it's less flamboyant, it's less loud, but still strong enough to get attention and keep it. This is what I would recommend instead. I think we have a little bit of a discount with Scotch Porter depending on if you spend a certain amount on an order, you get to save some money. I'm going to have details in the description, but that is Miami Duppy. Definitely my favorite of their 4 fragrances that they have. Okay, another fragrance that is extremely popular that I don't really wear anymore. It does not move me, and coincidentally, my wife cannot stand it. This is from Chanel. This is Allure Sporto Extreme. I describe this as sweet, citrusy, and smooth. Does it smell bad? No. It smells really nice. Really nice. But it just kind of smells really nice all the way through. I feel like you could spray this on mannequins in a store and people would find it pleasant. It would kind of just make the store smell good. But on a person, it's just like, okay, it's fine. But after like 3-4 hours, what is it really contributing? At least for me, not much. If you want to just be clean all day, that's fine. But similarly to how you want to wear clothing that you love, at least I would imagine you do, that's how I feel about my fragrance. I have to love it. Otherwise, what's the point? So what I would wear instead of this that has a similar vibe, I'll be honest, I don't wear this fragrance very much either. But I do find it more interesting because it has more of a personality to me. It has more focus. It's a little bit more specific. This is from Lolita Limpica. This is called Green Lover. This is actually also cheaper than the Chanel. It does have a similar vibe in that it is fresh. It is citrusy. It is pretty smooth. This is like an orange sweet creamsicle. If you imagine like orange popsicle with vanilla ice cream in the middle, that is the vibe here. It's kind of cooling, fresh, maybe a little bit of juniper berry running around in here, giving it that cooling vibe, but sweet kind of mandarin orange like citrus with creamy, smooth, very approachable and alluring vanilla. But it's ultimately a very fun fragrance. I prefer this type of personality because, again, it has more personality. It's more focused. It's not just a mishmash of things that work. Anyway, that's just me. Lolita Limpica Green Lover. Again, what matters is that you're wearing what you love. Okay, here's a big one. I've been completely out of the loop on this brand and on the individual behind it. I hear it's discontinued. Maybe all the fragrances are at this point. Maybe you can confirm this in the comments. Talking about from Fragrance One, this is Office for Men. I have not worn this in probably over 2 years at this point. Do I find it pleasant? Definitely. It's fresh, it's clean, it's versatile, easy to wear it any time. Is it interesting? No. And I was definitely a little bit off put when I heard the details about how little money it cost to make this fragrance, and that in comparison to how much it was being sold for, bad taste in the mouth for sure. Maybe ignorance is bliss, because I'm sure that is common throughout the industry, but to have it heralded so arrogantly like that didn't really work for me. Nonetheless, still a pleasant scent, but something I find even more interesting is from Masi. Black-owned brand. This is called Into Me for Him. I find this stuff really, really good. It surprised me. I did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did when they sent it to me. They did send this to me in a sample form first. They let me sample it, and I didn't really plan to move forward with it. I'm like, okay, it's going to be kind of a basic, easy to wear, versatile men's fragrance. But spending time with that sample, I had to write back to him and said, hey,
can I get that bottle?
Fantastic quality. It is kind of this sweet, fresh, fruity scent. Watermelon is a major player here. You don't see a ton of watermelon scents out here. And this is actually watermelon. I've seen some others that say there's watermelon in it and I don't really detect it, or it smells really synthetic and sharp and scratchy, but this is beautiful, juicy, refreshing watermelon with some other, again, bright notes. It does smell kind of like a blue scent, like your typical designer, but there's more depth to it, and it actually has some fantastic performance. This stuff lasts a long time. I find it just way more interesting and way more satisfying to wear than something like Office for Men, if I were to compare them. But I am comparing them right now. I do recommend checking out Masi. I'm going to have a link down below. Get you a sample if you can. I'm not sure if they do technically sell samples, but if they do, check it out. They also have a beautiful one for women. Grace loves to wear that. That is one of her current signature scents right now, and she loves it, and I love it on her. I find it completely intoxicating. Good stuff to check out from them. Check it out down below. All right, just a couple more. This is a heavy hitter. I have admitted that I don't care for this fragrance. I don't really care for this DNA, period. But this is another one that I have to admit is a solid flanker. Acqua di Gio Profumo. A solid flanker to the original. It does what a flanker is supposed to do. It takes that DNA and it keeps it, but it gives it a more specific personality. In this case, darker, smokier, a little bit earthier, woodier, less bright, less clean smelling, but still fresh. I describe it as dark, fresh, and mysterious. Makes it a little bit more mature and a little bit more interesting as a result, even to me. But still, after a few hours, I've had enough. It doesn't change very much on my skin. It's boring to me. Not to say it's bad, but it just doesn't interest me. So what would I prefer instead of this that's also dark, fresh, and mysterious? Well, unfortunately, it is a fragrance that is discontinued. But again, you don't have to go out and get my alternatives unless they sound really interesting to you. I'm just recommending that if you are wearing some of these very, very popular fragrances because of the attention it gets you and not mainly because you love it, it doesn't take much effort to find something else that you will actually love. And that could even still get you positive attention, because I like to say this, and I do believe in it, any fragrance can get you compliments if that's what you're looking for. It all depends on the other aspects of your appearance and your presence being taken care of. But we're talking about Bottega Veneta Porum Extreme. Again, unfortunately, a fragrance that is not easy to find. But if you can find a decant out there, I recommend trying it out. The whole line is wonderful, and I think most of the line is discontinued at this point, unfortunately. But man, this is earthy, patchouli, and maybe some pine in there. You have quite a bit of a supple leather. It is a little bit fresh, but in more of a green, woody, coniferous way, not an aquatic way. It is dark with that earthiness, and as a result, it is kind of a mysterious fragrance, but still extremely handsome smelling, very confident smelling. Not really any more so than the Armani, but I just find it more interesting and less generic. So that is Bottega Veneta Porum Extreme. Again, doesn't have to be this one. Whatever will do for you that you love, that serves the purpose. That's what I'm talking about. Finally, the heaviest hitter on this list, may be predictable, but we got to talk about it. This is a mainstream fragrance at this point. Maybe it wasn't when it came out, but because of its popularity and because of kind of what they've physically done to the scent, watering it down, reformulating it, it has now become really no better than a lot of very basic men's designer fragrances out there. Sorry, just what I think. This is Aventis from Creed. Again, the current batches are uninspiring and a little disappointing. I have loved Aventis in the past. I have an old bottle from 2016 that unfortunately has started to turn a bit, but at one time I was wearing that thing several times a week and loving it. I don't really wear it much anymore because it doesn't smell like it did before. And this bottle definitely is a shadow of what Aventis used to be. Woody, fresh, and manly. Why do I use that word manly? Well, in my experience, the only people that have ever complimented me on this fragrance are men. Only men have ever said something. Whereas I've worn colognes like Emperor from Parfums Vintage, and only women have ever complimented me on that fragrance. Ironically enough, this is like the manlier scent though, because anyway, you get what I'm saying. But it's just, it's a shell. I don't really care for it. What would I wear instead of this? Well, I would choose another Creed fragrance. I might even choose Aventis Cologne if I had it. I've really grown to love that fragrance. I don't have a bottle though, but I recommend checking that out, and I can easily recommend it over Aventis. But one that I do have that I would wear over Aventis every time is Creed Viking Cologne, their newest release. And I just like this stuff. It is perhaps a little less mainstream than Aventis, but still mainstream. It's kind of a mainstream fougere. It's like an upscale version of some very popular designer men's fragrances out there that maybe harken a little bit more to the old school, like stuff from the 90s, but higher quality. So it still has some interest, but it is pretty mainstream, but I really enjoy it. It's great in the summer. It's great for any occasion you would wear Aventis. It's fantastic as long as you love it. I happen to love it. I didn't always love it. When I first smelled it, it smelled like toilet cleaner, but I think it needed some time to macerate. Now it smells wonderful, and I definitely prefer it to Aventis. So that's my last pick. To replace Aventis, I'm going with Viking Cologne. That's going to do it for me for this video. This is hopefully an interesting topic. I hope it spurs some discussion. Again, I'm not trying to be divisive and say if you like these fragrances, you're wrong. All I'm saying is if you're going to wear these super popular, super hyped, over discussed fragrances that are in every YouTube video on YouTube even today, make sure you wear it because you love it. Obviously, there's no consequence for not doing so, and I'm not going to be policing your life and saying,
Wait, do you like that? Do you love that?
If you don't, why are you wearing it? I'm just trying to plant a seed and just make you think critically about what you are supplementing your personality with. Why not make it thoughtful? Why not make it something that has meaning and purpose and something that you actually love? Why not? I would love for you to answer that question down in the comments if you have opposition to it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.